Good afternoon and welcome to the Center for Black Equity, Black Queer Women in Leadership virtual fireside chat. I'm your moderator, affectionately known as Lady Karan. And I am just say I can have to tell you that I am just honored to have the opportunity to share the platform with these phenomenal women. Thank you, let me say first and foremost, to the center's president and CEO, Earl Folks Jr., for graciously extending this invitation to me to actually facilitate this discussion. I can tell you that we've had a sidebar discussion with the women, and y'all are in for a phenomenal treat. So I'm going to like sort of like throw them a sidebar here. So they're not ready for this one, but I think these women can handle whatever I throw at them today. So what I'm going to do is just sort of share with you what area they're from as it relates to Black Pride. And then I'm going to like give them a little cue to prep themselves. They're going to actually introduce themselves. But they're going to introduce themselves by telling you a story, their personal story as to what brings them or what qualifies them or equates them to be able to sit on this platform today to share with you who they are and how they have derived at this place. I'm going to give them about 2 or 3 minutes to do that. So I'm going to introduce them one by one, and then we'll go into the less formal introductions, because I know these ladies really want to connect with you on an intimate level. You've joined today, I'm sure, because you want to hear from women who are women of color and to hear their stories as it relates to being queer women, whether that's bisexual, whether that's lesbian, whatever the case may be. You want to hear their journey, their story, and because I'm sure you either can identify with them personally, or there's someone that you love that you want to better support and and to help them move forward professionally and personally. So that's my goal for today. So as we start out, we first have Carmen Neely, who is from Harlem. We have Casey Dooley from Boston. We have Janice Chambers, who is from, I'm not going to say DC, I've got to say all of it, who's from the District of Columbia, DC. We have Lisetta Cross. Did I get that right, Lisetta? I didn't. Tell me, Lisetta. Come on, tell me. Tell me. Go ahead and correct me. Go ahead.
It is Lisette.
Lisette.
Like
we have
cassette, Lisette.
Okay, yes, we have Lisette Cross. And is that from Reston, Virginia?
Nope, it is from Black Pride RVA, which is in Richmond, Virginia.
Richmond, Virginia. Thank you. We have Lisette Cross from Richmond, Virginia. Thank you, Lisette. And we have Regina Duggins from Charleston, and Gwen Clemens of the Tri-State. And can I say Gwen? Can I go ahead and say Memphis? Is that legitimate? Can I say Memphis? Okay, because we say Tri-State, but some people may not know where Tri-State is. So Tri-State is Memphis, Tennessee. Can I tell you all, like, I'm excited. We had not that you all care, but we had a meeting the other day just to sort of connect with one another. And I personally have connected with these women. They don't feel it, or they may not know it, but I connected with them, and they're powerful. So you all are in for a treat. So again, I like to propose that we do an not a formal introduction, but we do an informal introduction for these ladies to share. I'm going to say 2 to 3 minutes of a personal introduction of what provides them this opportunity to share this platform with you as professional Black queer women. So I'm going to go down that list again, and just so you know, that list is not by any hierarchy whatsoever. I literally just alphabetize them by first name. So
You miss
Carmen.
me. You miss Avian.
Hey, girlfriend. We didn't know you. Welcome. This is my sister friend from Atlanta. Good to see you, my sister. So, okay, so everyone's name is alphabetized. So, Avian, that brings you first. So, you're here. I know, like, I didn't know you were here. Glad you're here. So, we are going to introduce ourselves and share with us, again, in 2 to 3 minutes, your personal introduction of what brings you to the space as a queer professional, or let's say specifically, because this panel is not just about queer, but this panel is about Black professional women. So share with us what brings you here, your story that brought you to this space. And you're on mute.
Okay, I unmuted me. You hear me? Okay. Hi, I'm Avian Watson, and I deputy direct a foundation called the Vision Community Foundation. We have been the nonprofit that has sponsored Atlanta Black Gay Pride for the past 9 years. I have done a lot of groundwork to create the outdoor festival and actually implement it, which we've done now for the past 8 years. Fed the homeless. I'm certified to test and counsel for HIV/AIDS. I'm also a publicist and sponsorship director and a grant writer. So I have just been in the trenches for quite some time now, working to create a more cohesive unit as far as pride, not just be a male voice, a transgender voice, a woman voice, but all people able to have a seat at the table and just discuss what's going on and what makes them prideful. That's
so
it.
Before we move on, can you share with us a little bit about your personal, and I'm putting everybody on the spot today, so a little bit about your personal story as a professional Black queer woman.
My personal story, I was thrown into public relations as a child. My cousin was a actor and entertainer since he was 3 years old, and I was 8. So any movie premiere he was in or TV show that he was a part of, I was blessed to be a part of as well. Ever since I was a kid, I always knew that I had an attraction to same gender and just was able to be more free as I grew up, went to college, graduated, and then transitioned to move from New Orleans here to Atlanta, and really became connected with the LGBT community by volunteering at first. And then I became their publicist, which later helped me to direct Atlanta's Black Gay Pride. Personally, I've always felt a connection to same gender loving. I am same gender loving, and I personally have enjoyed my own journey. I've not ever been in any closets or no offense to anyone who has had that story, but I've always been pretty outspoken and pretty identified within the LGBT community.
Wonderful. Thank you. And give my love to Bishop, please.
I
will. Wonderful. Okay, we're going to move on to Carmen now. Carmen, are you on the line with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, sis. Hey, sis. I'm awesome. How are you?
I am fine. I'm fine. So honored just to be part of this panel. Everyone here is just so fabulous. It is really an honor to be here.
Glad to have you. So tell us your story.
Well, my story to leadership, there's so many pathways, but it was accidental, actually. So for example, my background is in education. I've taught high school, middle school, and I was doing a film series. I'm gonna try to put this in a nutshell. A film series at what would turn out to be the other co-founder for Harlem Pride. So first, let me say, Carmen Neely, co-founder and president of Harlem Pride. And so he and I, the other co-founder named Lawrence Rodriguez, were doing a film series that was one of my projects in his art gallery. And so one of his annual projects was a Pride exhibit. So we were trying to figure out how to promote this particular exhibit. And it was erotica, male phallic symbols, and this sort of thing. And so instead of the typical wine and cheese sort of reception, we decided to throw a house party. So in putting this house party together, we started looking around to see if there were any other sorts of events like this in Harlem. And we found that there were no formal Harlem Pride events. So then we started calling this party Harlem Pride. And at the time I was doodling a little bit. I created a logo. The woman I was dating at the time had some t-shirts made up for a group she was with. And I was like, babe, can you throw this logo on a t-shirt? So I started wearing the t-shirt around Harlem, poetry nights over at what was then Billy's Black and sort of thing. And people would start to say, oh, what's Harlem Pride? What's Harlem Pride? I'm like, it's a party. It's a sort of, I didn't expect that people would react to it. So it caught me off guard. Long story short, we ended up putting on an event that Lawrence's partner was on the Block Association, and the Block Association had a permit for a block party the last weekend in June. So we decided to join in with them. And we had the first Harlem Pride, June 26, 2010. We had 2,000 people, 2,500 people, or 3,000 people that very first event, depending on which newspaper you read. And we were just like amazed. We thought just our little friends in our circle like that would just come. We had politicians, we ended up having sponsors and vendors. And we just thought, okay, we have to formalize that. And that is the beginning of what would turn out to be my journey or my path to leadership in the LGBTQ community. Over the years, Harlem Pride has grown to be working on a 20,000 square foot community center coming to Harlem. We've worked on various different incidents in terms of things that happen to community members. We've been parts of protests. Most recently, volunteers from Harlem Pride helped paint the Black Lives Matter mural here in Harlem Pride. So we've just been a group, and I just say nobody gets to where they are by themselves. So I feel awkward about saying I, because it was definitely a team effort. And so that has really been my journey. And from there, we've just grown, and whatever need we saw, we tried to help fill it or help create something to fill it. So at this point in Harlem, there's Harlem Pride. There's also the Harlem Center as a second 501c3 entity. And then as a collective group of Black LGBT groups, Black and Latino, we have the Black and Latino LGBTQ Coalition, which is an advocacy group. And then we have a 501c4 arm to do political endorsements and that sort of thing. So we've tried to come full circle with our community activism and organizing, and that group is called NYC Pride and Power. And so while I've had a hand in some of all of this, it certainly didn't get done just by me, myself, but that's in a nutshell my journey. And I'm just so happy and blessed to be here. Because if you had asked me in undergrad, would I be doing this? And I really wouldn't have thought so. But I'm very happy to be here at this point in my life, and particularly in this time right now.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
All right. Awesome. Next, we have Casey. Casey from Boston. Are you on the line? I'm looking at you. Hi, Casey. So we're going to unmute you. There we go.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Fine. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you for having this conversation today.
Yeah, absolutely. So share with us what brings you as a queer woman to this platform to help, I think, empower other queer women or women that may have queer people in their family or that we could assist. I think your story would be very instrumental.
So part of my story started with I was the chair of accessibility at Boston Pride. And then I noticed that there was a lack of leadership in the Black Pride role. So I decided to step up and commit 3 years to it, which has led me to actually this year, me and Val B have co-founded the new Boston Black Pride. We have stepped away from Boston Pride for their lack of standing with the Black Lives Matter movement, and just lack of many things that led us to this point. And so something new that we're creating is more of a cohesive, Black Pride coalition within the QTPOC community, and making sure that all voices are heard and the issues are pressed forward. So it's a little bit about where I got. And I'm
Awesome.
a hairdresser by trade. So
Okay.
I kind of fell into this and didn't actually learn how to use a computer until about 5 years ago when I threw myself in full force.
Well, welcome to the tech world.
It's been an interesting journey. I was actually probably one of the only people that was still paying a mortgage in cash right up until COVID.
Wow. Okay. We're going to hear about some, I'm sure, this growth professionally, because, professionalism doesn't just happen just like running a business. Professionalism even should be happening in our in our personal lives. So like, we talk about, and I'm sort of like going here before I get to the next person, but when we talk about professionalism, we have to first understand and implement those skills in our personal lives that flow over into our professional lives. So, hey, you now know how to pay bills via electronically for your business or for Black Pride for your area, or even as an entrepreneur, as a hairdresser that you probably didn't embrace before. So welcome. And I'm loving the hair. The hair is flowing. Man, I'm loving it. Wonderful. Thank you, Casey. So we now have Janice, who will be sharing her story as well as to what brings her to this professional space as a queer Black professional woman. Hi, Janice.
Hello, everyone. Hello. I really don't know where to start because my story is so long. I've been coming to DC Black Pride for 30 years, which means I was actually at the first Black Pride with my grandmother. From then on, I came to various ones. I would go to the Woo and Let events that they would throw for the females. And one year, my godmother just decided to ask me, did I want to volunteer with her for DC Black Pride? I was like, okay, sure. That was in 2012. My background prior to doing that, I had done about 14 years in infectious disease nursing and case management. So I was already used to being in the community, but not dealing with the community as far as going to the Black Prides as I was partying. So I figured it was a way for me to give back. I attended the event in 2012 and it was fun. When I walked in, house music was playing in the reception area. I felt like I was at home. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna come again. And I met the volunteer coordinator. Her name was June Spence at the time. And me and her just connected. And when we connected, we were sharing ideas of ways to make things run smoother. And then I came back the next year. And that was because she asked me would I come and help with an event they were throwing. And I said, sure. I came there all dressed up to turn out to be the coat check girl. Had no idea I would be a coat check girl in high heels. But it was fun because I got tipped. And once I did that event, I guess they saw that I was prompt. I came and I was professionally dressed, ready for anything. And then I came back the next year. That year, June told me that she was planning on leaving and was I interested in becoming the new volunteer coordinator. I was like, sure, if they'll have me. Then I got the call. And it was, hey, spoke to the board. What do you want to do? I'm like, oh, sure, all hands in. And I did it. And I stayed and it actually ran smooth. Each year I stayed, it ran smoother and smoother and smoother. And then I got bumped up to volunteer director, the director of vending and volunteer for DC Black Pride. And I don't have any plans on quitting. I love the work we do. I love the way me and my team bond. We more work like a family. So, any hiccups or anything that goes wrong, it just encourages you to want to stay and actually do more work and to, better empower yourself the same way we do our visitors who come and see us here at DC Black Pride. And that is my story, the quickest way I could tell it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we're next, Lisette. Did I get it? All right, Reverend Lisette, tell us your story. What brings you here today?
Oh, I love telling this story about how Black Pride RVA started because it all started with a conversation. And I'm a transplant to Richmond. I came here because I went to the best seminary this side of the Mississippi, Virginia Union University School of Theology, and then I just stayed here in 2010. And in 2016, I became a pastor and of an LGBTQ affirming church. And then we unfortunately had the vigils around Pulse that also happened that year. And it was at that visual that we recognized, or at least it erupted in a more obvious way of the ways in which mainstream LGBTQ communities don't always respond to the needs of Black and POC LGBTQ folks. So something happened at that vigil. It angered a lot of the Black folks. I was having a conversation and I was like, with a friend, and I said, we have two choices. We can drink and complain, which I ain't got no problems with, or we can respond and create space. And so I invited a group of Black LGBTQ leaders who were viewed as leaders within Richmond to a conversation. And they said, yes, it feels like the right time. And we hosted Virginia's first ever Black Pride LGBTQ festival in July of 2018. And I just think that my ability to see folks and to love on people, always willing to party with a purpose, but more importantly, to gather people together and to get us connected in ways that really support our community. That I think is what makes me a leader, and the ability to hear critique, right? So I think it's already been said by Carmen, but I don't, yes, I'm the face on this panel, but I do not do all of the work. So big up to the Black Pride RVA planning team. I'm not gonna start calling names because they know how bad my memory is, but I want to just really reiterate that the joy of being on this panel and to be viewed as a Black queer woman in leadership is not just because I pastor, but also because saw a need, invited people to a conversation, and then we were able to coalesce together into creating this space to ensure that we foster healthy connections in the Black LGBTQ communities of Greater Richmond. So that's what brings me here today.
Thank you, Lisette. And you know what? I have to tell you, I'm a ordained minister as well, and you are my kind of preacher. Okay, and we're just gonna leave it right there. We have an offline conversation a little bit later.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. The next person that will be sharing their story will be Regina Duggins, who's in Charleston. So, Regina, are you here to share your story with us? Hey, welcome, Regina. Welcome.
How you doing?
Awesome.
So I've been here 10 years in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm originally from Coney Island, Brooklyn, New York. So when I was about 24 years old, I decided to let people into my life. I don't tell people that I came out of anything, closets or anything. I say, I'll let you in. So I started to share with my family about my interest in same gender loving individual. And I've already had family members who were a part of the LGBTQ community, but some of them were very closed and not open about sharing their lifestyle, or if they were speaking about it, it was always in the sense of being safe and not really wanting to talk too much about it unless they were in another setting that it was mainly LGBTQ. It was not very easy to be who you are, walking your truth back then in Brooklyn. So I had some family members that asked me, because I'm an educator and working with children, to kind of censor how I am about myself, and I refused. I said, I'm going to be who I am, and I'm going to be open and honest, and however people choose to deal with me or not, then that's on them. So when I came here to Charleston, South Carolina, I noticed that there wasn't a presence of the LGBTQ of color scene. So I started to find out which organizations was here. So there is a Charleston Pride organization, which was more white led. And so I had joined because I was, wanting to help with the identification and the representation matters. Joined the organization for maybe, I could say, a year and a half. Didn't see much change, moving in the direction of helping the people that I represent. So I had kind of like Lisette had a brunch and invited those that from the LGBTQ or color community. We came together, we started talking, and we talked about what changes and what issues or what we really wanted to see here in Charleston. And people were on board. And so I said, I waited for a while, prayed on it, thought about it, and then decided to just go ahead on with it. And we're a year in of Ashburn Charleston Black Pride here. And the numerous amount of work that we've done is amazing. The reach that we've had, one of our, and we stand proud on this, we had a home buyers seminar, and one of the LGBTQ individuals, couples, brought a home, and they were able to do that. And that's very big, because my thing is, we know how much injustices there are, and they were able to buy their first home. So we celebrate them. Anyone who has a marriage, a wedding, or something, we celebrate that. One of the sad things last year, we had a that woman that was murdered here in Charleston. So we had our first vigil, and we stood on our beliefs that we wanted safety, and to make sure that there was some kind of an ordinance. South Carolina does not have a hate crime bill. So we got an ordinance passed in the city of Charleston, working with our mayor and the police department. So we have a lot more work that we are going to do, but we just want to make sure that the Black and brown people of Charleston that are LGBTQ are uplifted. So what Charleston Black Pride stands on the principles of: representation matters.
I love it. Yes, representation matters. You know what? And I love the fact that, and I hope everybody hangs in here with us, because one, it's important that people really know who our panelists are, because some people may be meeting you for the first time. And so this is why this is very important. But if you all hang in here with us, we're going to get into some meat and some nitty gritty on some stuff. We're going to have some real conversation today. So thank you, Regina, for sharing. I understand that, is it Janine? Have you joined us?
It's
Am I pronouncing your name wrong?
yes.
Because I will butcher a name in a heartbeat. Is it Janine?
Yes, it is.
Hey, Janine, welcome. So we're going to go to you, and then we're going to go to Gwen next. So share with us what we're doing right now. We're sharing 2 to 3 minutes about your story as a queer professional and what brings you to this platform, and to share your story for our listeners, to tell us about a little bit more about who you are.
Okay. My name is Janine. I'm pronouns is she, her. Sorry, y'all. My puppy decided to join in. Pronouns is she, her. I'm originally from Miami. I've been living in Selma, Alabama for about 6 years now. Got into this work probably a little bit longer than that, back in 2010, where I started to want to be more involved in the community, specifically for LGBTQ folks. Most would say, I've grew up in a big city, and I should be more open to LGBTQ folks and being around that community, but I didn't get to start hanging around community until I got to Alabama, and being able to grow and learn about myself and my needs and how I saw myself fitting into the world. But this work has definitely driven me to want to do more for my community, being more than just Black Pride. I think Black Pride came along towards the end. But for me, Black Pride is really about being visible, having representation, especially in a small town like Selma, where you don't see a lot of folks who are like you or look like you. So I think that was my biggest motivation, being a part of this work and being a part of this movement, is being visible, showing up for my community where I know other folks can't. And I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And it's so funny that you say that, because I was on a panel myself, and Earl was on a panel a few weeks ago. I won't say with whom, but oftentimes people talk about Pride Month. And I love the fact that we have the Center for Black Equity Pride, because we often get left out of that equation. So I'm glad that we are on this having this conversation today, so people understand the relevancy of why our voice as people of color, communities of color, really is relevant. And so I want each of you to really understand what you're doing on the ground, because it's really the grassroots movement that makes the difference. That I think that many of us who are in the community not doing the work often take for granted. So kudos to you all. And you know what, Gwen? Last but not least, my sister. God, it's good to see you, my sister. So we're gonna move to Gwen, who has like an amazing story. Like, what does your shirt say? God is a black woman. Is that what your shirt says?
From Memphis.
I love it. So tell us, Gwen, about your story. I mean, like, if you can put it in 2 or 3 minutes.
I definitely can. I definitely can. Thank you all for having me be a part of this dynamic panel. I've been enjoying listening to you all share your stories. So I'll be as brief as I can. So I'm a native Memphian, and I've been part of the community all of my life. I was 16 years old. I was sneaking into clubs. So I knew where my tribe was, and I found my tribe. And so I'm here. I'm planted. I'm rooted. And so Tri-State Black Pride is under our foundation called the Cathedral Foundation, which is part of our church, Cathedral Praise of Memphis. We're under Bishop O.C. Allen, UPPC. So when you and Reverend Lissette have that meeting, I want to be in it, because I'm an ordained elder. And so I consider myself a serial entrepreneur. So I used to own a club in Memphis, Tennessee, LGBTQ club. And Black Pride has been in Memphis for about 20 years. And the founder of Memphis Black Pride decided that he was tired and he didn't want to do it anymore. And in 2016, our foundation took over and we named it Tri-State Black Pride for Memphis, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Arkansas, the tri-state area around here, because when we looked at taking over Pride, it was really singularly known as a party. And under our foundation, we've been able to incorporate it, and we call it an LGBTQ convention. So we took it to another level and incorporated educational forums in our Pride. So we do job fairs, we do workshops, we have testing, screening. We've been able to pull corporations behind and put their dollars behind the Black LGBTQ community. And instead of in the month of June to just say, throw up something and say they support Pride, no, put your money behind us. And so that we can go out, and because, you know, I don't know if you all know, but in the concentration of the South, it's over 3 million identified LGBTQ individuals. So we have a large concentration of people to serve in the South. So, and through this arm of Tri-State Black Pride, and my role is that I'm the chairperson for the women, and I make sure that women are represented and included in Pride festivals. Because what I know to be true is that it's usually associated with male and transgender community, and Black lesbians have always been getting the leftovers in my region. So I make sure that we have representation and that our voice is heard, and that we have viable space for lesbian women to show up during Pride. And also, in addition to that, we run a media firm, the Unleashed Voice magazine, and we had an Unleashed Voice radio show since 2014. We're one of the few self-owned published Black publications that go out and do this work through media. And it's by default. And we saw a need to have representation all the time, not just when something happened and then they feature us 1 month and then we go away as if we're invisible. So the Unleashed Voice magazine is an influencer in this area, and we're national. And so we use all of our connections to promote who we are. And one thing that I can say that give us credence to be able to speak for the community is that our consistency and our longevity, and people know that the work that we do, it has receipts behind it. So when we come to the table and when we're sought out, we come with receipts, and we come with respectability. And that's what we stand on, Reverend Sanders.
You better come with receipts. I love receipts. Yes, that's facts. I love facts. So ladies, I'm going to actually maybe shift this a little bit. I know we have some questions, but to your point, Gwen, you know, there's when I look at the gay community and I look at the lesbian community, there are so many activities, there are so many spaces for men and even some transgenders to really move and shake and be visible and have fun. Who on here, and this is not one of the questions, but I'm just sort of curious, why is it appears, and this is my assumption, it appears that there are not as many spaces or safe spaces for the lesbian community. One, we either don't support one another as lesbians, and or we just don't have the opportunity, that space to actually um, engage with one another. So we actually find lesbians usually find ourselves in a space with our gay men partying or even just socializing. Why is it that we don't have more spaces for ourselves? Is there anybody, just like, if you could unmute yourself, I would just love to hear yourself, hear your perspective, one, as just being a part of the community, and two, as one that is a business professional. Like, why do we not open up more clubs? Why do we not open up more restaurants? Why are we not like moving and shaking on a grander level as our, and I hate to say this, but you usually see it in the, I'm going to say it anyway, because I can say it. We usually see it in the white privileged gay male space. So why are we not maximizing in that space? So those are like a lot of questions. So you all chime in. This is your conversation.
I just want to step in and represent all the bisexual women out there. As a bisexual identified woman who often is in same gender loving space, bi erasure is real. So I just wanted to kind of lead with that, and the idea that, like, for us to find space for women, same gender loving women, it is, I think, about access to capital and wealth. It is oftentimes us who are taking care of not only our families, but our extended families and the broader community. And that the socialized gender roles of like what women should or should not be doing is, I think, plays into this. And what I noticed, or we've noticed in Richmond, Virginia, it has also just kind of been a little bit of like, can we really do it, right? Is there really an opportunity? And then the willingness and the perseverance necessary to jump through all of the hoops to make it happen. And that does take more than just one person wanting to do it, but like galvanizing a group of folks that can pull resources, that can have a greater network of connections, and that can really empower one another and push one another to say, this is what we need and this is what's possible.
I love that. Thank you for representing the bisexual women. So to your point, the resources, oftentimes, you know, we have these communities, going back to my point, we have, let's say, whether you're a lesbian or you're a bisexual woman, that you go out, you actually take that leap of faith and you start that business. But like, how long does it last? Because we don't show up. We prefer like the house parties versus we do the open spaces. So who can speak to what that means to you, and what do you need from the community, or why don't we support one another when it comes to entrepreneurship?
I want to jump in on that. Some of it is, I feel like for the longest, I don't know why, I've seen a lot of Black women, we come at each other in a different way and we don't support as much as we should. And that ego tripping, and you know, it's, if my name is not on it, if I'm not the one that started the show, or I'm not going to support that woman. And we have to move past that, you know. And I'm glad to honestly say that we do have a LGBTQ identified DJ here, DJ Trip. I'm giving her a shout out name because she took over and went into a cisgender club and is rocking out for and just embracing the LGBTQ community and of color to come out and support her and back her, you know. But there can be more, you know. But I noticed that sometimes we run into that roadblock that, you know, that, I don't know, it's kind of like, why Black women, we can't just all work together. And I mean, there's some phenomenal women that, I mean, even on my board, you know, but I would love to see more of that. And then also, if you're not in the LGBTQ community or a lesbian, and you're a woman, Black woman just per se, why is it that we don't get that support too? So I can't wait to get further into the discussion about the being ostracized within our own race. And that's another problem.
So referring to Black allies is what you're referring to.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
So our Black allies, you know, are not really in support of the LGBT, the lesbians or the Black LGBTQ community.
So to your point, before we go to the next speaker,
Yes.
I like to call people out, because like I posted this on my personal Facebook page. So y'all about to bring me out. And someone had the audacity to troll into my personal Facebook page. So I'm giving you a shout out, whoever you are. Stay off my page. If you don't like what I post in support of the community, find another page to follow, because they were saying how we were condemned to hell. I bind that in the name of Jesus. So leave that someplace else. Just in case you're trolling right now, just know you're not welcome. So just log off, go to your page and post whatever you want to post, but not on my page. Okay. I'm done with that. Anybody else want to chime in to my question regarding go ahead, Gwen.
Can I go after Gwen?
Okay.
Gwen,
well, you're up, Janice.
I'll go after Gwen.
Okay. So for me, I think that in my region, patriarchy, dominates what happens in our community, and even in lesbian relationships, because a lot of lesbians model their relationship out of the heteronormative society. So they play the male-female role, and and then to me that create barriers for us when we want to go out and show up and become entrepreneurs, business owner. I was, like I said earlier, I own a club in Memphis, and we thrived for 3 years. But what I found to be true then was that the women just don't come out as much. Women like to come out maybe once or twice a month, and where the men will be out 7 days a week out in the clubs. So I think that as far as support, you have to have that financial support to keep your doors open. So, and then another thing, I think that what we ran into issues with was making sure that you remain relevant, because as the things changed. Can y'all hear me? Okay, because I'm getting a little note here. Mm-hmm. As time change, you have to make sure that you stay current with the change and how the guard changes. And what I see now, in the community, is like we kind of reverted back. And for me, I prefer a professional setting. I'm older, and I prefer more of a jazz setting, live music. That's what I like. And so I'm not into the bumping and all of that. But if for each his own, do you? But I just think that financial literacy plays a role. Understanding, what all it takes, what it encompasses, and having a well-rounded working knowledge of how to sustain that business. It's more than just having the thought and just jumping out there and doing it. It's a lot of working parts that go into having this business and running this business. It's a lot of work, just like for Pride. Pride starts for us again in August. And we're going to plan year round, in addition to the other things that I'm involved with. So I think that there is room for it. And I would love to see it take place. And then we wear this button in Memphis, and we have this button called Trust Black Women. And the reason we wear this button, because we know inherently it has been embedded in us systemically through white supremacy to make us not trust each other. It's played out in the media. It's played out in the sitcoms that come on. So I think it's up to us to change their perception of how we show up and how we support each other through sisterhood.
Great stuff. And I think, Janice, you wanted to share something?
Yes. When I came out when I was 16 and I started going out to clubs, it, like I said, when I did my introduction, it was under Willette and Woo Woo, WW. They were our party promoters for, our community, the lesbian community in DC. And every year that I would go out around Pride time, it was like, oh, the men don't want to give the money, they don't want to do this, they don't want to support. So I had grew up like, dang, why the men don't like us? So I was really, uneasy about that. But once I got, on the Pride board and started to see what was really happening, it was a separation. And I can honestly say that the separation while I was there, it was not because the men did not want to support the females throwing parties or anything like that during Pride, because the invitation has been extended to them. It was even a time where we were going out on Facebook trying to find, female party promoters, trying to link with them, trying to find places in a hotel for them to throw parties for the community. And I want to say half of them didn't even respond. They want to go off and do their own thing. They didn't want to, I guess, use the tag DC Black Pride because, with the tag, there comes a fee of $200, I think, around that amount. And that's not much, especially if you want to get a whole lot of people who come into the hotel that are women asking, hey, where are the female parties at? They would have been listed inside the book. They would have been on the banners. They would have been on the website. We would have definitely promoted their parties to get the people that come in for Pride to come to their events. They didn't want to do it. I even went as far as to advocate on the radio. Hey, we want your business. We want to work with you. We want to do all this with you. We're here, and we'll waive the fee if you can't even pay it. I mean, they're willing to work with them. I was being the voice to try and bring our women in. They did not want to do it. And then you get the sidebar conversation. It's like, oh, they don't mess with us. They don't want to help us. That's a lie, because we do. I'm here trying to do it. But you don't want it. You don't want to do it. You want to do things your own way. And I can also agree with Gwen when she said it's a difference in the parties now. At one point in time, you go out, you'll get about 30 minutes of house music, then you had a show. We got tired of seeing the shows. The people in my got tired of seeing the shows. We wanted to go out and dance. When you go to a male party, it's majority dance time. You go out, you have a good time, stretch your hair out, and it's fun. Instead of a break in the show that we had to watch everybody lip sync and all that, we really got tired of it. So now we have Women in the Lights parties that we have every year, and it's fun. I mean, everybody from the old school that I grew up coming around about, because I have a lot of elder gay females in my family. So I know more of the elder gay female crowd. I mean, they have a good time. It's packed. So it's there. It's just that a lot of people don't want to work with the people that want to work with them. They want to do everything on their own, not understanding we can't get anywhere if we don't work together. We can get somewhere, but we're not going to get as far as we want to get. So, I mean, it's just, they just want to stay separated. Why? I don't know.
Awesome. And great feedback. And I want to hear from those that are quiet. And I know you all personally. Well, I think I know you personally. You're quiet a little bit. Carmen, I definitely know you personally. You all are in very major cities as well. So, like, what do you think is the issue around why we don't have more spaces for the lesbian and bisexual female community? What is it that we're missing? What's lacking? I want to hear from you ladies.
Okay, well, I'll jump in. I think here in New York City, if we're talking about Pride Month, you could go to a party every day, all day, 24/7, the entire month of June, because the whole city is popping. And so for us at Harlem Pride, we decided we weren't going to give parties. We might do something where we throw our support behind a promoter that's doing their own party or help promote parties. But just to add another one to the big overall mix just wasn't financially conducive for us, because let's just look at Harlem. At any one point in June, you have a party every Friday, Saturday, probably a tea party on Sunday morning, and there are 15 different events you can pick from at any given day during June. There's just so much going on. So we figured it is not really conducive for us financially to add to that pot. But if we're talking just throughout the year, I agree with what Gwen and Janice have said. It's a lot of issues are just supporting each other as a community of Black same gender loving women. lesbian, bisexual, gender nonconforming, whatever the issue may be, and just supporting each other within that community. For example, here in New York City, there are a lot of meetups where people tend to categorize the type of woman they are, type of lesbian, or the type of this or the type of that. And whatever your label is, you tend to kind of stick with that. But what that does is make it a little difficult for any ongoing party to continue. And then if you do, a couple of things that were going on, a couple of bars, they're not even here anymore. I mean, part of that was years ago, New York City had this whole, they cut out a lot of parties and a lot of venues where Black women would go. You had Crazy Nannies, you had all these different other places. Click Club, I could name them all, been there. But they don't even exist anymore because they had a real crackdown on all of these different things. But like it was said, the boys, you can have a empty warehouse and good music and the boys are coming. Women, we want plush seating, we want nice ambiance, we want, you know, a little more, and a little more costs more money. And if we're at a deficit, trying to
I'm sorry, because like stay right there. Like that's real talk right there. So are you saying that we're high maintenance? That's why we can't keep things open?
Yes.
I mean, is that the problem? Because it does cost more money to like draw our crowd in, or are you saying because like our white gay men or our gay men or our transgender, they just want to like turn up, party, have a good time? But are you saying that because we do require that, that's why we're not able to sustain a professional atmosphere that's same gender loving, friendly, that's inclusive, that's diverse?
I would definitely say that's part of it. I don't think that's all of it, but I think that's a major part of it. You know, there have been different parties that I've been to where if the music's good and the company is good for me, I'm good. But, oh, I couldn't get a drink. Or sometimes in New York City, because real estate is so expensive, you'll go to a place and if you don't have a cover, you'll have a drink minimum. Oh, I had to buy 2 drinks and drinks for $15. It's New York City. So it's sort of like, you know, you can't just come for free, party for free, drink for cheap, and we can maintain the space. There are expenses. And in terms of just a business model, it doesn't work. Like in terms of us as an organization, Harlem Pride, we just don't even do it. Now, there have been ideas where we've talked about trying to get a ladies' night at a particular venue. But what then happens is it might be popping, so to speak, for the first month or two. But then after a while, it's, oh, I've been there, done that. And you know, as women, sometimes we get in a relationship, we want to Netflix and chill. I can go get, you know, a bottle of Tito's and some cranberry and chill. Me and my boo on the sofa, we in my place, you know, we don't have to worry about A, B, C, D, whatever it is. We can Netflix and chill, but we'll catch it next week. Now we Netflixing and chilling again next week. Oh, we'll catch it. Oh, it's going to be back next week. Next thing you know, the party's closed because everybody Netflix and chilling and we're not going out. And then we want to complain, oh, we don't have anywhere to go. What's going on for Black lesbians or Black queer women? What's going on? Nothing, because you all didn't come out and support it. Nothing's going on. So
and when you don't, and I was just gonna say, when you don't come out and support it, that's like revenue's not coming in, and that's not able to sustain our businesses.
Right, and I think that's the bottom line. It's the economics of it, and it's not necessarily being supported. There's always the desire for it. And even myself with my friends, we will Netflix and chill at each other's houses. But right now, there's really not that much going on in New York City in terms of something specific for us. And that's unfortunate because it's New York City. But there's nothing really, really here just for us. And there are 2 Black gay-owned bars, lounges here in Harlem, and they're both struggling mostly due to COVID right now. But they tend to be very friendly. Of course, the boys are more supportive and go out more frequently, but you can still have a good time, definitely. Shout out to Lambda Lounge and shout out to Alexis with his bar.
You better get free press, yes.
You know, shout out to the brothers, they own it, and shout out to Adrian, you know, for B2 Squared. So we love them. But if you're talking about a consistent ongoing, and B2 Squared is a restaurant. But, you know, I think it's economics. It comes down to that. And you can't have something that continues if the community doesn't support it. And I think as women, sometimes we do fall into what I call the Netflix and chill trap.
Absolutely. I love that. I love the Netflix and chill flex. I don't know what that looks like. So I'm waiting on that day because I'm gonna be in that category when it happens. So ATL, come on now. I mean, I spend a lot of time at ATL. So what's going, I mean, now maybe because I'm hanging with certain groups, I don't have that problem, but come on, talk to me, ATL.
I haven't just done Atlanta Black Pride, but I've done Las Vegas Black Pride. And I see it being about money. People don't always want to connect their resources and connect their dollars. So that's a part of the separatism. I do see what Reverend Gwen said when she was talking about the consistency of women going out versus male. I get to see that in hosting Black Gay Pride in Las Vegas with just generally the numbers of people who are buying and purchasing the passes, even here in Atlanta, from purchasing of passes to even combining everything together and creating an outdoor festival for all people to be involved. We even have challenges with everyone wanting to come to the table and being involved, to where it becomes mostly one person or two people producing and doing all of the work, and everyone joins in when everything is good and great and looks wonderful. And you're left to carry the mess at the end of it because you've done the work. You've tried to make it where it's an open table and open setting and format for everyone to be involved. But because of money and people wanting to keep their money where they can follow it, it creates the division. So that's my honest, realistic perspective after working in Atlanta Pride, doing Pride in Miami, doing Pride in Las Vegas, doing circuit parties. That's a whole nother aspect that people aren't even thinking. Now you're not just been competing with a Pride perspective, but circuit parties. I know in Miami, there are circuit parties. In New York during Pride, there are circuit parties. Even in Las Vegas, we had a promoter basically help us one year, and then he created his own entity and started. It's just competition. It's ridiculous, and it's a lack of unity, and we see it amongst each other racially, and we see it as far as in our sexual orientation and preference. So I feel like it's a heavy mental issue that needs to be fixed for us to be able to learn how to cohesively work together, because we're all doing this for the greater good. I don't think anyone gets involved in this work for self. It really is more about how people are able to be more free and open because you've decided to take that step.
Absolutely. And not only just being free, but there being spaces where you can be free. Yeah. And that's what I love about the Center for Black Equity, because as Earl works with so many of you all across the nation or globally, creating those spaces to be free. So like we have these you all you're phenomenal women here, right? But like think about how many other Black prides that are held that are not represented. Not saying that they couldn't have been represented today, but like, are they as successful? And that's a rhetorical question. No shade. Don't respond. Don't respond. I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble, but like, how many other people are successful in those African American or communities of colors or people of color spaces, and as it relates to Black pride? Because again, you heard me say earlier, Pride Month is very hot and popping. Everybody's turning up. You having the parades, you having all of this and all of that. But I would love to see you all step up with because Earl is my partner. So I would like to see the Center for Black Equity really step up and push the envelope where, we talk about Black Lives Matter, because that's sort of tied to this conversation today as well. I would really like to see us as a community of color really step up and start being present and demanding the space, demanding the voice, demanding the opportunities that all these other people are taking. I mean, they're not demanding it, they're just taking it and they're making it happen, whether it works for them or not. So I would love for us to see that to be the case. So with that being said, one of the next questions, and chime in because we're family, the next question is, what do you need from the community? So the community can be those that are part of the queer community, but it can also be those that are our allies, because I'm going to tell you, I'm an advocate for our allies, because Our allies really are our voices that help bring that balance from people who don't really understand the gay community, right? The queer community. So I'm going to give a shout out to the allies. I appreciate you. So they're very important. So like, what is it needed from the community on either side to really help us move our agenda, to help to benefit us as Black queer professionals, whether it's in your professional space as what you do as a promoter, whether it's in your professional space as a radio spokesperson, if it's in your space as a minister, whatever your space is, what is it that you need from the community, whether it's the queer community or the ally community, to help you become more successful in the space you operate in as a Black professional queer woman?
Less ego and real financial resources. That's my answer.
So when you say resources, is it that we need to understand what's available to us, how to access them? Because I know for me, because you personally know my background, right? So I often see people want us to hand them things. They don't really want to do the work. So speak to those people who don't want to do the work as an African-American person or a person of community.
So just in even pulling resources and funding just to produce a pride, you are already competing with pride. Black gay prides are competing with pride. You are already getting a door closed in your face because they feel, businesses, corporations feel that they are already supporting a pride organization. You are not just supporting a pride organization. I can say in Atlanta, at least, our numbers contend with our overall pride. So that statement is not even, to me, is not true. So we need more people that again can drop their ego and be really susceptible to hear what Black gay prides are doing, and so that we're able to have that same seat at the table to apply for those same resources. Because even just sitting on this call, I've heard not only are we hosting events that are parties, but we're creating real change. We're being real advocates for people. We're setting up voter driving booths. We're feeding the homeless. We're testing people and empowering people with their health and mental status. So it goes beyond the level of resources that we're not going to work for, because we're actually doing the work without the resources. We just want the level playing field to be able to have the same as another company. Let's say I'm applying for a grant with Mercedes. Mercedes will turn me down because they feel as if they are already supporting pride. But you're not supporting pride, because it's not just this pride that has it. It's not just these numbers that you need to reach. So that's what I mean by the resources.
I want to add in. Oh, sorry, Gwen.
Hey, go ahead, Carmen.
Go ahead, Regina.
Listen, I want to add in that what we need the allies to do is to shut down all the stigma. Now, if you hear the negativity coming on about the LGBT community and you are allies in support of us, don't allow it. So when they start talking and saying things about it, because like right now, it was a post that I got about the P. What does the P mean in LGBTQIAAP? So I said pansexual. They're like, no, it's associated with pedophilia. So I had to go through the whole thing. I said, well, let me tell you what our organization represent, the Black LGBTQ people of color that I know, that is not accepted and tolerated. But my thing is, if you know about the LGBTQ, you witness and been and you roll, shut that down. Tell them that tell them, speak out about it. Tell them about all the great things that LGBTQ people do on a daily. We 365 days gay. And we out here with families. We out here in the education field. We out here making sure everybody eats. Somebody has this, but they want to talk negative. So the allies got to talk to them and like, cause here, I'm down in the South. We in the Bible Belt. Okay. I'm in the holy city in Charleston. So the first thing we're going to get thrown at us is about religion, but the allies can stop that. They can have those discussions and say, listen, let me tell you something. God is love. So all that other negative stuff, but that's what I mean. People got to step up and in support of us. Then when you're talking to our LGBTQ of color, We just got to work together. We see an organization out there doing everything that you possibly can, and then come and tell us what we need, because we don't know. We're going on the base of what our board members and you know, or what we see that we need in our community. But if you know that you need certain resources or you need some help, come to us, because we are representing you. And that's why I said Charleston Black Pride stands for Representation Matters. So if you come to us, we're going to be open and welcome you in, because you family. We calling them family. So lean on your LGBTQ of color organizations. Tell them what it is that you would like to see. What, not just on Pride Month, tell them what you want to see throughout the year, because Charleston Black Pride, we operate throughout the year. And we're trying to hit as many areas that we possibly can, because we know that we are already underrepresented. We're already underserved. We're already out here fighting with the Black Lives Matter, because we do matter. So come on out, LGBTQ, tell us, so that we can amplify it. And then we go into the allies and say, look, this is what we need and we want. We building the table. We need you. Now we need y'all at the table to hear what our list of demands are, our call to actions, and then go ahead out there, implement it, and give us the resources. And I mean resources, fund us, pay us.
Yes, Regina. Okay, I love passion. Yes. So Casey, now what I know about Boston, if I don't know anything else about Boston, Boston is a very family-oriented space. Like when I tell you Boston is ride or die. So when you hear all of these conversations, what would you like to share with us, Casey?
You know, as far as Boston, we have a lot of spaces, you know, for the community, but the problem that, you know, some problems that we're finding is back in the day, you would go to the club and that was your safe space. So everyone that was out went to that safe space. However, now, luckily, there's many other spaces. So trying to pull, the younger community that tends to go out more and getting them involved into these clubs to make them sustainable, I think is important. But also back to your point about the, resources in the community. One of the reasons why we started the new Black Pride is because, Boston Pride was not listening to the community. The community wanted a voguing ball that wasn't happening. The community wanted access to resources, wanted a voice. So to be able to provide those resources and that voice to the community is so important, and have those spaces that we can be involved in. Hello.
I'm sorry,
sorry.
that was me.
Oh,
that was
sorry.
me.
Also, one thing that we can do is hold our Pride boards accountable. Is your Pride board, is it diverse to begin with? Does your Pride board look like you? Is your Pride board supporting the community members that are already doing the work within the community? Are you supporting them by showing up to their events? Are you supporting them by, not charging them to promote their events? Are you supporting them financially? It doesn't always have to look like how we have it. It can look like many other different versions. I know in Selma they've set up more of like a center where that, you can go and you can get clothes and you can get social services and you can get a little bit of everything. And, we could reimagine, what that support looks like. Something that in Boston, what we also did is, because of the lack of support with Boston Pride for the trans community, an organization, the Trans Resistance, was born. And Athena Vaughn and Chastity Bowick started a march, and it was the same day as Pride. And we did it this year, and they raised over $70,000 for housing for the transgender community. So, something that the new Boston Black Pride is doing is, communication. One big thing that's important is the lack of communication within the QT BIPOC organizations. We wear our pronouns very widely, but I think we should also wear how we communicate. Do you communicate emotionally? Do you communicate fact-based? There are tests that you can take to be able to evaluate how you communicate and the best ways we can communicate with each other. And that's something that we're working on. And I think that that's something that's very important, to be able to build that community and build those relationships that may have been fractured in the past, you know, and hold each other accountable, not just these outside organizations, but, you know, hold the person accountable with that you're working, that there was a problem, and work through that problem and try to grow and learn together and build something so that we have a stronger voice.
I love that. Thank you, Casey. And so I am not a part of any Black Pride committee. So I do expect an invite from everybody on here for next Black Pride. But I know we have a lot of people on here. I know I'm sharing, I'm not sure if you all are sharing it on your Facebook pages, but I'm sharing this on my Facebook page. And I know Black Equity is sharing it obviously on their page. The Center for Black Equity is sharing it on their page. So I know there's a lot of people on here who are not necessarily in the Black Pride space. So as we sort of like transition to a close, I want to give professional women, whether they're lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, whatever they identify, because I believe, you know, it could be fluid, right? So, but I would like to leave as we transition out. And I would like to hear from each one of you, sort of like starting from how we did it by first name basis in alphabetical order. What is one thing that you would like to leave the audience with that may be inspirational? It could be a professional nugget. It could be something that promotes diversity, inclusion, and equity in its truest sense. Like, what is it that you feel in the community as a professional Black queer person that could be an inspiration to those that are in the space as a professional? Because I believe that, I mean, we can pretend all day long. Some of us have the freedom to be out and gay and be proud Black and be gay. Some of us have to be Black and quiet. And then some of us have to be Black and still be quiet. So what is it you can leave all of our listeners with, each of you, to empower them, to give them, especially as we're talking about Black Lives Matter? You know, yes, Black Lives Matter, that sounds really good, that's sexy, but at the end of the day, you know, Black Lives Matter is a huge movement, right? But that doesn't really penetrate where I am in my day-to-day space. It doesn't really penetrate, you know, when I have to go to work for the white privilege. It doesn't really penetrate when I have to go work for the Black power. That, you know, because we often think that, you know, Black Lives Matter only pertains to white privilege, but there's also oppression in the Black space as well. We talked about that earlier, how we don't really support one another. So to my point, what would be the last thing that you would like to leave us as Black professionals to empower us, to press on, to be the best we can, to move past that comfort zone in our professional spaces so we can take the reins and be that voice or find that voice that we need to level up? So you are first, Ladybug.
Okay. What you were saying, it resonated to me with why I do this. Love. I want to show love. I want to lead with love, and I want to learn how to love better. I feel like that's been my basis in my learning, even as we have challenges within our own group and we have challenges within our own selves, just to learn more about how to love and how to be more accepting and listen better and really hear what the needs are of our community and the needs of ourselves. So that's pretty much where I'm at.
Thank you. Carmen, you're next.
Well, I would say one of the things that I really would want the community to walk away with is to thine own self be true. That's at the bottom of my personal email account, that sort of thing. Visibility matters. And the youth today are a whole lot different than when I was their age, some 40 some years ago. I'll tell my age. So the whole environment is different. You see more visibility on television, in the media, that whole sort of thing. But at the same time, this is a courageous step to be completely 100% authentically who you are. And for people to feel empowered that they can do that. And I just wanted to shout out Casey with what she and her team are doing, because I totally believe that sometimes we have to leave behind those who aren't supporting us and be for us, by us, about us, and do our own thing, regardless of what somebody else should be doing for us. We have to do what we know we need for ourselves. And I just also wanted to touch base on what Avion was saying. We at Harlem Pride totally get this whole thing of these corporate sponsorships where they say, oh, well, we already support a Pride organization, and it's the multi-million-dollar NYC Pride organization. And not that they don't deserve sponsorship, but they feel like they can check that box off now that they've supported LGBTQ. And one thing we all know in our experiences is mainstream white LGBTQ organizations, by and large, do not represent our needs, our priorities, our hierarchies, or even just our desires. And we can even look at the artists that they decide to choose versus the artists we may choose to come into our events. And that's just a basic example. So going back to thine own self, be true, to put that first and foremost in your professional life, and not in a selfish sense, but in a sense that, you know what, this is my community. These are the elements of my community. These are the people in my community. And these are the people that I surround my priorities about, you know. I prioritize their needs and whatnot as a collective community. And I think that's how we grow our audiences. That's also how we endear people to support our organizations on an individual community basis. And then together we can fight. I mean, all of those organizations that have grown up here in Harlem in terms of Harlem Pride, and then the Center, and then the coalition, as well as the endorsements through NYC Pride and Power. Nobody sat down one day and was like, oh, we're gonna make these 4 entities because it's needed. They grew out of seeing what the community need was, seeing that people were not even interested to care about what our community needed. So we had to create our own entities so that we could fight for our own interests. And now people are like, oh wow, now we're being heard, now we're visible, now we're on the scene, and we cannot be denied. So that is the thing in terms of professional leadership that I would say to people is stand strong on your priorities and know that it is valuable. Know that you are valuable and keep it moving. If people don't see it, you've got a whole group, a whole village behind you. Keep moving forward.
Spoken like a true NAACPer. So I want to just maximize on that real quick. So yes, and you know, live your truth. And I think that's what we don't do often as women of color, is live our truth. We feel that we need to be validated by other people. And anybody who's on my Facebook page, you are always seeing me post something about knowing, you know, being empowered, speaking life to power, like being who you are and being okay with who you are. If somebody cannot accept you for who you are, keep it moving. It's just that simple. And so thank you, Carmen, for that. And I think that was absolutely amazing. The next person is Casey.
Hello. You know, thank you very much for that, Carmen. That was amazing, and you're always inspiring. Thank you for everything that you're doing. You know, something that I think many of us do too is we wear 17 different hats, and we're trying to help everyone and everything, and involved in many different boards and organizations. And I think something that is very important that we tend to forget is self-care. You know, that's something, if we aren't taking care of ourselves, we're not going to be able to properly take care of everyone else that we want to. So I think self-care is, you know, something that's very important, as well as, you know, getting involved in your local politics. I actually just ran for state rep. Sadly, it was during COVID and I did not get enough signatures, but I will be back in 2 years. And, you know, something that was very important to me is the lack of representation. You know, my state rep was the only person, one of 2 people that voted against marriage equality. And, you know, something that's very important is our representation in politics and making sure our local laws are around that. So, you know, also just be a true, authentic self. And I think if we can live like ourselves, it inspires other people to then have their voices heard.
Thank you, Casey. And that's true. And you brought that back to my point, is that it's about being your true self, your true authentic self. And only you know what works for you. And I think oftentimes we as women and women of color, we allow other people to define us. So define yourself. Only you can define yourself. And when we talk about being lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, whatever the case may be, um, you only have to decide when you want to disclose that, uh, be out with that when it works for you. Never allow anyone to pressure you into doing something that you're not ready to do. I want to encourage people who are listening, who may be struggling with feeling pressure to having to disclose something that they may not be ready to disclose. I think it's very, very important. So we are at Janice.
Alrighty. Tying into what you were saying, definitely being as open and as honest as you can to the community and to yourself. But also for me specifically, checking my privilege. I can go into a space and choose to not disclose. Unlike some of my trans sisters who they have no choice as soon as they walk into the room, however they identify, however they present, they have to live in that. So holding space for communities is very important to me. Using my privilege to support my community, trying to break down the stigma, continues getting more ally support. I think all of those elements that we all touched on today has such a impact on how we support our community year round, not just for Pride. And the hardest part is in this work is once the Pride season has died down, you have to keep supporting your community in ways and showing up in ways that you sometimes you feel like you can't do enough. So self-care is definitely important. Knowing your limits, knowing what you can and cannot do for your community, and how can you show up for your community whole every time you come into the space. I'm with Carmen. It's like it's a lot of white-led organizations who've been doing this work year after year after year, and when Pride is over, you can't turn to them for support. And it's very discerning to know, especially when you know that Pride started as a movement for trans women who led this movement. And it's really hard to have to consistently keep supporting our community when the rest of the world outside of our community isn't as supportive as we need them to be. So I just want you to hold space, check your privilege, make sure you are using your privilege for good, showing up for your community, which I've seen some of you do at CBE spaces together. And I really appreciate this call and really enjoyed myself.
Thank you, Janine. And I just to echo what you said about trans women of color, I think we often leave them out. And I just want to just like a shout out to the trans women of color, trans men of color, because you often, and I'm not an advocate of you being left out. So I wanted to give you a shout out. But also you said something very powerful, and we're going to go back to Janice. You said something very powerful is that I'm not direct part of Black equity, but just because Black Pride Month is happening, you all don't let that just be your defining factor. Let the work that you do for those that may not do it, because I know most of you, this is your life. Like you're doing Black Pride, you're in the space 24/7. So for those that are not, this is who this voice is for. And there may be those that are not a part of this panel, but continue the work, because it's not just about a party once a month or an affirming get together and we can turn up, because we love to turn up. I like to turn up, but let it be some relevant work, even down to how can we get people to get to the polls? How can we get people to register to vote? How can we get people involved in civic engagement? Those are things that really matter to our communities, that is bigger than a party, that's bigger than a convening, that's bigger than just being Black Pride. So I want us to remember that as well. So Janice, are you there, my love? Okay,
I'm
we want to hear
here
from
and
you. Okay.
okay. Oh, how do I want to start? I had enough time to figure that out. But I used to work for this company down in Gallery Place, Washington, D.C. And I was in love with the company, what it stood for, at least I thought I was, until I had to deal with them and my sexuality. A co-teacher of mine, I'm a master static instructor. A co-teacher of mine kept telling my students that the only reason why I want to teach them how to do certain procedures is because I'm a lesbian and I want to see their body parts. And when it came back to me, I was hurt because this teacher was once my teacher. So I thought if anything that she would have been more so proud of the work that I'm doing because I'm a product of her. And it didn't turn out that way. So when another teacher of mine asked her, why did she say that? She said, you can look at her and tell she's a lesbian. I never heard that about me before in my life. So I mean, it just shook my ground. So I wrote a letter to management, corporate, everyone, and nothing was done. Then it was another incident at this school, and one of our white male teachers told another co-teacher, she was very upset. She was like, oh, he told her that, oh, you have angry Black woman syndrome. And I'm like, did he really just say this? Did he really say this to you? And he wasn't reprimanded about it. So it took me a while to get it together, wrote another letter, included all of this in it. Again, nothing was done. And I had to sit in my mirror and ask myself, is this a place that you really want to work at? Your voice is not being heard. You're basically being discriminated against because you're a Black woman and you're also a lesbian. And nothing is being done. How can I sit here, come here, spend my days here, work my tail off to make this place a better place, and your voice, I mean, you don't matter. You really don't matter. Your work you do may matter, but you don't matter as a person. And I left. And then you sit back and you see why there is a Black pride, period. And it's because we need people to speak up for us, especially in places like that. You need to know that when I was there, we were all basically everybody was gay, but there was a difference in the way that the white gays were treated versus the Black gays were. And I saw that working there. And people need to stop saying, why is there a DC Black pride, and find out the facts why this was actually started. And it was started because we were discriminated against in the LGBT community. And stop turning a side eye and saying, oh, well, I already gave money to the Capitol Prize or whatever the state pride is, and figure out, well, why do they even have to have a Black pride in the first place? If they're all gay, why they're not working in unison? Figure that out why before you started distributing your money out. Because it's not being shared amongst the whole community. And if you cannot look yourself in the mirror every day and love the person that you are, stand by that person that you know that you are, represent and present that person that you know that you are every day, you need to have a deep conversation with yourself. I'm not saying that you need to come out of the closet, but you need to have a deep conversation with yourself and actually find out who you are, because somewhere there's a disconnect within yourself. You have to love yourself, regardless what it is that you are or what it is that people think you are that you're not. You have to center that. And I had to do that because I have children. I had to come out to my kids, even though I was living this life way before, but I had to come out to my kids. And once my kids were able to look at me and I was able to look at them and disclose my sexuality to them, and they looked at me and said, Mommy, I don't care as long as you're happy, I was able to then be my authentic self, because I would go out, but I would never bring no company back in the house. And once I was able to merge my life together to be my whole self, that's when I found freedom to actually be able to do what it was I wanted to do in this community, because I couldn't be halfway in. I needed to be all of me in order to help my community. And that's what I intend to do for the rest of my life.
Thank you so much, Janice. Yes, that was powerful. Thank you. The next person is Lisette. Reverend Lisette.
Well, I had to grab a pen and a piece of paper because, preachers, you can start, you asked us to be inspirational and we can go on for a minute. So I just, in my good Black Baptist fashion, had to come up with 3 words. And just because I'm a lover of alliteration, I went with R. And the first is to be rooted. Rooted in what grounds you, right? What are your values? What are the things that really make your soul sing? And to go out in the world and to do those things and be willing to experiment with what it looks like in different spaces and places, right? I would never have thought that I would be in the position that I am today to have co-founded Us Giving Richmond Connections, which is the nonprofit that hosts Virginia's first ever Black Pride LGBTQ festival. So I know that that's because I am rooted in who I believe I'm called to be and what my purpose in the world is. And so I just want to first start with that. Just be rooted, like know what your values are, know what you're committed to, and know that you have a place from which you do any of the work that you get to do in the world. And then recognize, right? So part of evolution of being this person that gets to work with others to bring about experiences with people, or to really work with others in order to bring about change, that you have to be able to recognize what are your gifts, be able to recognize what is your role. If I was not operating in my gifts or in my role, would we be where we are in Richmond, Virginia? I'm not sure, but I'm grateful for the opportunity that I was able to recognize it. And then I was able to foster some types of conversations with folks who then recognize for themselves what their role is and what their gifts were and how they wanted to do that, rooted in their values of giving back to the community and making space for Black LGBTQ folks in the greater Richmond community. And then my last R is to be responsive, right? To be responsive to the times that we're in, be responsive to what your heart is telling you to do, but also to be able to be responsive to people lovingly calling you in when you mess up. Lovingly being able to say, you didn't do that right, or we could have done this differently, or we, should be reflecting on how we are better doing the work that we said that we're doing, right? Or we say that we want to be able to do in the world. Because if we can't be responsive, then we'll continue, right, doing the same thing, just in a different way. And that is the definition of insanity, right? And nobody wants to do that. It's particularly in these, in this moment of a global pandemic, right, where all of us are being invited to be responsive, right? We at Black Pride RVA had a successful virtual Black Pride weekend because our team was willing to be responsive. Could we have said, we're not going to do it? Could we have just been like, we're going to chill or rest or not do anything? Absolutely. But what we were willing to be rooted in what we believed. We recognized what our role and our gifts is to the greater Richmond community. And then we were responsive, right? And being willing to be flexible, to be willing to fail forward, to be willing to try a thing out. And then now, as we are on the other side of that weekend, be able to reap the benefits of that, right? To be able to celebrate all of the ups and downs of that. So to be rooted, to recognize, and to be responsive is how I would leave today.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. Rev, you did good. You're 3 points. And then next we have 2 left, Regina. And after Regina, we're going to hear from Gwen, and then we'll be closing out.
Ladies, I just want to say awesome, awesome, awesome. I really enjoy being on this panel with you all and getting to just meet you all. Part of it, I believe in live your life unapologetically and just walking your truth. Always remember that, representation matters. So to make sure that if you are in that leadership role, to walk in it. I ran for a House representative seat here. And I did not win due to COVID. 19 and not being able to fulfill my campaign. But now I'm back on another ballot and I'm running for school board seat. I'm currently a constituent board member for my district. So I believe that getting into more political spaces so that we can be a part of that table and be able to, get some supports and helps and resources that's going to be needed in our community. Also, I feel that with Charleston Black Pride, changing the narrative about what people feel have the association with the LGBTQ of color community. Trying to make sure we're creating change and creating more spaces. I used to always feel that, I had 3 strikes against me, one being Black, one being a woman, and being lesbian. But now I use it in a powerful kind of condensation. I let people know, listen, we are powerful, we are strong, and we are leading the charge. So that's all, I just want to leave with everyone, live your life unapologetically and walk in your truth.
Awesome. So before we move to Gwen, for Gwen to close us out with the last comments, I just want to recognize that we've had 2 people talk about they ran for office. So Regina and Casey. So I want us to make sure we're making acknowledgement of this, and that we're making note of this, and that we're supporting these women who are taking a step out to really represent the community. So just make sure you're spreading the word in your area. Gwen, bring it home.
So, well, congratulations to all of the ladies that ran for office. I wish I would have known so I could have helped you in some form or fashion. So that's a good connection that we have today. So just to piggyback off of pretty much what everyone has said today, I think you all covered a lot of bases, and it would be redundant for me to keep repeating it. But one thing that I stand on is just really, I'm more than gay. I'm more than a gay woman. So that my sexuality makes up about 5% of who I am. So when I show up, I show up as a Black woman first. And that was one of the biggest challenges that we had in our city with the Black Lives Matter movement. So we countered that with all Black Lives Matter, and including our trans sisters and our trans brothers, and just all the aspects of being Black. So the community needs to understand, Reverend Sanders, is that, especially in the South, I live in Memphis, Tennessee, the place where Martin Luther King was killed. And the beauty about that is the National Civil Rights Museum sits on that land right now. And we have our opening ceremony right there where Dr. King was killed, in the National Civil Rights Museum. That was historic for our community, to open up a LGBTQ sponsored event in the National Civil Rights Museum. We had press coverage because we stepped in that thing like we owned it. And we didn't come in with our head down. We didn't come in asking for permission. We showed up and we took that space. And that's been our opening ceremony. And we do not get the representation and the sponsorship because we do have to battle with the white pride in the community. But what we know to be true, and we also call it out, we write it in our letters, and we let these sponsors know that we find that problematic. And we also establish why we have Black pride and why they have white pride. We call it out. That's white pride, and this is Black pride. And it's not meant to create a divide between anybody or anything that's going on in our community. It's just, it is what it is. And this is the cultural representation that we are showing up, because they can't talk for us. And I know they can't tell my story as a triple minority. Like what you said, Regina, they cannot tell my story. So we have to show up. And then, and your parents always tell you, you have to be better than the white people. You do. No matter how we want to reject that old saying, we do. We have to make sure that our books are in order. We have to make sure that our money is going in the places that we say it's going. We have to establish our transparency in the work that we're doing so that we can build trust in our community, so that they will want to put their dollars behind us. And I know that's to be true because there has been a lot of people that come in and take advantage of our community. Black Pride, it makes money. There is no denying that. You have the promoters, they come in, they throw the parties, and they make boo-hoos of money. But what we know, being governed by the Center of Black Equity, is that our money goes back out, and it goes out into the community like it's supposed to go out into the community. We had my son, Dr. Clemens, he ran for city council in Memphis, Tennessee, and he came in second place, but he's going to get back in that race again because we deserve representation on the local level, the federal level, and the state level to make sure that we don't have these same white men passing these oppressive laws. I live in the Bible Belt. We have to fight Church of God in Christ that sent us to hell every time they have convocation in St. Louis, and they coming back to Memphis in 2021. We did a virtual Pride, Reverend Lisette. We put on a 4-day event for virtual Pride. And it was just as powerful as our physical Pride because we did exercise responsibility in the middle of a pandemic. But right as we did that, we had another group that threw a Pride into and had over 500 people in a venue in the middle of June when we was on a stay home order in our city. So we were trying to show we are responsible and we care about you all, but you have people that still run amok and put our community in harm's way for the sake of a party. So that's where we have to combat. We have to combat that through education, educating our community to understand that Pride didn't start because of a party. Pride started because of a protest, and that it was hijacked by the white community. Even the flag was hijacked. So we rejected that flag. We don't want that flag. Put that brown in that flag. You know what I mean? We reject that flag. We reject that crosswalk they put in Memphis without that brown and that black and that flag. And we call it out. They say we're radical. That's
I love it. I know.
Right?
I know.
They say, hey, they radical because when we come in the room, we come in the room ready. We come in the room, we know what space we're about to enter, and we know what you all are gonna do. So we are already equipped, we're ready, and we're ready to go to battle anytime you wanna go to battle. So I'm gonna do a shameless plug. So our issue this month is all Black Lives Matter. The time is now. And a lot of people don't want this in their location, but that's okay because all Black lives do matter. And that's why we put this out. So we use this in addition to being representation in the city, because we know that Black media matters. We know that Black LGBTQ media matters. So we have to get behind these entities to make sure that we have that representation you talk about, Regina, because if we don't have these entities out there, it's just going to be your voice alone saying that representation matters. But you got to reach, I got to reach Boston. I need Reverend Lisette to know what I'm doing. I need to know what Janine in Alabama know what I'm doing. I need to know what Janice doing in DC, in Avion, in Atlanta. So how can we better connect with each other so we'll know what we are doing?
That's a great point.
We have a Center of Black Equity, but today's the first time I've met all of you besides Regina.
Yeah, Gwen, this is the first time you met me.
But not you. and Avion. But I've met Regina. I know Avian. I know you, Reverend Sanders. I've been to many sessions you and I have been in together. But yes, we need to know, I need to know you all are out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a great point. So like, how do we, and so we're so like, for those of us that are, for those of you who are not on Zoom, we're having a conversation of, and how we want to move, how we want to transition this to a part two. Because like I have so many additional questions that's beyond Black Pride. But again, I'm going to bring it back to Black professionals. Because I have no doubt that a lot of people joined today, in addition to hearing about Black Pride, but really wanted to know how do they maneuver this space as a Black, as a person of color, as a professional. So I really want us to come back and to have that conversation later. And I'm sure Earl and his team will make sure that we make this happen again. And I love what you said, Gwen, about how no one can speak for us. No one can know that those other people, no, we're not gonna call no ethnicities or races, but they can't speak for who we are as a people of color. Only we know our story. Only we know our journey. Only we can tell our story. Only we can walk in our truth. You can't walk in our truth for us. And so I think this is a great platform for us to have that conversation, to tell the truth, so people know, like, I think this is like empowering, you know? So like those people who don't feel empowered as a Black queer or a Black professional, they know that the Center for Black Equity, in addition to you all as individuals, you all as women, stand in the gap. So we are going to have this conversation again. Thank you all. I have been given the cue that we must end. You all have been dynamic. I've heard that there's been great feedback. So I'm sure that the Center for Black Equity will be sharing that with you. Thank you all. Shout out to everybody. Continue to do the phenomenal work that you're doing in your respective areas. It's been my pleasure as Lady Karan to work with you. I hope this is not the last time, and I look forward to working with you in the very, very, very near future. And to my Facebook Live people, thank you for joining me. Take care. God bless you. Stay strong, stay safe, and healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you.